Right, let's speak to reform. As I said just moments ago, the head of policy for reform, Zia Yusuf, is here with me in studio. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Clearly, yesterday, Keir Starmer says that your policy to scrap ILR, indefinite leave to remain, which is something that people here legally on visas can apply for after 5 years, is a racist policy, and I do think it's immoral, were his words. Why is he wrong?
Well, I think the people watching this programme are sick and tired of having their perfectly legitimate concerns about immigration being belittled and being smeared and being insulted, and, you know, insulting people as being racist for raising those legitimate concerns around immigration simply will not work. Look, Britain has become, sadly, the people watching this programme, many of whom are headed to work as we speak, already at work, a portion of your day is going to spend working to pay for the £9 billion last year alone of universal credit welfare payments paid to foreign nationals. And I'll tell you this, that number is going to balloon over the coming years as the Boris wave, the 3.8 million people Boris shipped into the country against the wishes of the electorate, by the way, who voted against such things, when they become eligible for indefinite leave to remain, that cost is going to move into the hundreds of billions of pounds. And with an upcoming budget from Rachel Reeves, which is going to raise taxes on the people watching this programme, there's nothing about that that's remotely acceptable. In fact, it's a catastrophic betrayal of the British people.
Clearly, there are other ways to address that wave, if indeed that's the word we're using in inverted commas. And in fact, both Conservatives and Labour are saying they want to increase the qualification for indefinite leave to remain from 5 to 10 years as it is. I think one of the questions that comes to the policy of abolishing it altogether is, what about people, and one of your qualifications instead is that people have to re-qualify for a work visa. What about people who have been here for 10 or 20 years on indefinite leave to remain and have now retired, who can't qualify for a work visa again? Would you get rid of them?
No, well, there's a path to citizenship. That remains. And so generally when these hypotheticals are offered, either that hypothetical doesn't exist because that person has already gotten citizenship, or there would be a path to citizenship that will continue to be available to those people. But again, we've got to be clear about this. We've got to uphold our immigration laws. And if we continue to just allow a situation where foreign nationals can come to this country, not contribute, obviously some foreign nationals do, but many do not, if they are not contributing, it is completely unconscionable with the fiscal situation in this country as it is, to expect the people watching this programme to pay for those people to live off the state for the rest of their lives. And that is what Starmer has just done. He has effectively said, in response to our policy, that you must, as a British voter, you must basically accept that hundreds of billions of pounds of your taxpayers' money must go to paying for foreign nationals, in many cases to live off the state at your expense forever, or you're a racist. And I'm sorry, there's nothing about that, I want to say this again, that's remotely acceptable. It's unconscionable. And frankly, it will no longer work. Those smears against the British people and the British voters will no longer work.
So I don't want to talk about Starmer's words on this anymore. I'm really keen to just get into the nitty-gritty of your policy on this. And those people who are on indefinite leave to remain now do pay taxes and national insurance. And that...
Many don't, because they don't work. Many don't work. In fact, the majority are not working.
But, OK, fine. But those that are, many would say, deserve, therefore, in later life to stay as a pensioner.
Sure, and the path to citizenship remains available to
Right. There I come to this, then, the point that you raise in this document, which I did read. There's only one line on the path to citizenship. And crucially, it says it'll be extended, the path to citizenship, to 7 years from 5 years. It's not a huge increase. Applicants will have to demonstrate near native levels of English language and renounce other citizenships. So that final 3 words is quite significant. So if someone wants to stay here after having lived here for 20 or 30 years, potentially certainly meeting all legal requirements, meeting all laws, and potentially paying into the tax system, they'd have to renounce their country of birth to stay here.
Well, we believe the British passport is the best passport in the world. We think it needs to be valued and has been given away too cheaply historically. So what we have announced is that, number one, the time period for which you need to be in this country will increase from 5 to 7 years, which is perfectly reasonable as far as we're concerned. And yes, in the cases of most countries in the world, we will insist that you make Britain your primary country. That is something, by the way, that most serious countries around the world, I would argue all serious countries around the world,
America doesn't do that.
Well,
Europe doesn't do that. Australia doesn't do that.
No, there's a lot of countries that do insist on it. And what we have said is that in most cases, we will require you to renounce your foreign passport if you want to become a British citizen.
But there's
on the basis
about the caveat in here. So which countries? I mean, there's a question here of fairness. There's a question also of attracting the best talent. I mean, are we going to attract the best people from America and Europe and Australia or many other places if we don't reciprocate what they offer, which is that you can have both citizenships? I nearly qualified in my time in America for British citizenship.
Let's be clear about something. Anyone who's been through the
both.
citizenship, anyone who's been through the process of naturalization in the United States of America, is you must take an oath that basically renounces your foreign allegiances and pledges allegiance
keep both passports.
but again, let's be clear about what the Americans insist on. They essentially pledge, they very clearly insist that you pledge allegiance to the Stars and Stripes, that you pledge allegiance to the United States of America. What we are saying is that we have got vast numbers of people coming from countries, many of them non-EU countries that are much poorer than the UK. These are the countries that are a vastly disproportionate burden on the British taxpayer. And what we are saying is you can't have one foot in and one foot out. If you want to become a British citizen and get what, in our view, is the best passport in the world, and I think many people watching this programme would agree with that, then you must have both feet inside this country.
Well, I mean, there's lots to unpack there, and we have to get on to another topic. But I think what's fair to say is, therefore, those three words in this document have a lot more detail that you're thinking of that haven't been announced, haven't been unpacked, and are critical to this policy.
We've articulated that point many times over. I mean, look,
you're saying now some countries will be on this and some won't. So that's an important detail that we don't have yet.
Well, we did answer that question during the Q&A, during the press conference when we announced the policy.
Well, I still think it's more detail to come. I have to move on to this next topic because we're nearly out of time. But Nathan Gill, a former leader of Reform in Wales and an MEP for the Brexit Party, has pled guilty to 8 counts of bribery between December 2018 and July 2019. What's your response to that?
Well, I think that obviously his behaviour is disgraceful. We utterly and roundly condemn it at Reform. But look, let's be clear about something. This is someone who has not had any involvement in the party since 2021. It was years before Nigel became leader. I've never met the guy, never spoke to the guy. The first time I ever heard his name was actually in these sad and awful news headlines. So this is someone who, when he was leader of the Welsh segment of our party, Reform was polling at sub 1% in the Senate. So it's not to excuse his behaviour at all. It's appalling and treacherous behaviour. But this is not someone who has had any involvement in what has been clearly a nascent party for a pretty short period of time. And again, I was chairman of the party for over a year. I've never heard of the guy. The first time I heard his name was in the news headlines.
And I guess he did have a position in parties when Nigel Farage was a leader of it, and obviously was under the same banner in the European Parliament. Are you
in a different party? Yeah. In terms of Reform, he has not had any involvement in Reform since 2021, and that obviously preceded Nigel's leadership of the party in terms of years. Yeah.
And I guess the final point on this is you're clear you completely condemn his actions. Are you confident that there won't be any more cases of this ilk?
Yeah, I am. Look, Reform has been crystal clear, despite what, what the only thing the government has to do, because their record is appalling, because Starmer's circling the drain as a Prime Minister. In fact, a poll this week showed he is the least popular Prime Minister, the most unpopular Prime Minister, literally on record. And the majority, according to a Survation poll this week, that on this channel was revealed by Trevor Phillips, the majority of Labour members at that conference and across the country want him to step down. The only thing they have is Smith. The way we are going to be able to stand up to Putin...
This isn't a Smith.
The only thing that is going to be able to stand up to Putin, the despot, and the awful leadership of Vladimir Putin, the only way we're going to be able to stand up to him as a country is having a military that can stand up in a mighty way. And the only way we're going to do that is by growing our economy and funding that military properly, which has not happened in decades. And Reform and Nigel are the only people who are going to be able to do that.
But we're not talking about the government here. Me asking you these questions about Nathan Gill, are you suggesting that is a smear?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that what the smear is, what they often try to do, is say, Nigel is in hock to whoever it might be. The reality is, Nigel has been crystal clear, and Reformer crystal clear. Vladimir Putin is a dictator. We stand by Ukraine. We think Ukraine's sovereignty is sacrosanct. But I want to be clear about this too. Speak to anyone in the military, as we do, day after day, whether they're junior, senior, or extremely senior. They will tell you our military is ill-prepared, ill-equipped to deal with the threat of Vladimir Putin. The only way, if we're serious about dealing with the threat of Putin, is by growing our economy and ensuring that there is enough money for our brave men and women to be able to serve this country and defend it. And ultimately, that is the way we're going to defeat Vladimir Putin.
We are out of time, Zia Yusuf. Thanks for joining us this morning. Good to see you.